Okay, welcome to another video blog where we're going to be discussing today how to resolve conflict with your colleagues. So, I often have conversations with clients, people on my courses, the people who I coach, where they're often engaged with tedious discussions around things which one would have thought that we can get progress on quickly. Yet something seems to be holding us back. So we end up going round and round in circles on the same thing, or it starts to get personal because somebody is always in the way or preventing us from doing what we want. And in fact, trying to get consensus on something with so many different stakeholders proves extremely complicated. So depending on the organisation you're in, this can often build up resentment and build up an us and them kind of dynamic, which further slows down the overall productivity and innovation that your company is wanting to get. Right, so how do we overcome this? Well, my analysis based on the years I've been in corporate companies and indeed working with clients since then is that we have fundamentally a lack of an agreed value proposition. And I've experienced this personally myself. When I've been trying to get consensus, I've often had to think, well, why hasn't that worked out? Now then, in order to get an agreed value proposition, I think there's two elements, and those two elements is to create clarity and identify the elements of alignment. And so there's two different things going forwards. Now, I think once we've got those in place, it then becomes far easier to make progress and get that consensus you're looking for. Now, I focus on the subject, so to speak, of the conversation rather than the how, the engagement style, the conflict management, behavioural elements, which is quite often that first comes up in the search when you type in conflicts management, right? Now, why do I do that? I think that we need everything in our toolkit, so to speak, at our disposal to make our lives easier for ourselves. And I think the first tool that I would get out is actually having a clear understanding of what we're talking about and then engaging with the residual elements, the people factor, so to speak, to actually get that alignment. So I'm not disregarding conflict management, behavioural approaches and engagement styles. I'm just saying we're going to make our lives easier when we do get to that point, which we discuss actually in our online courses. Anyway, value propositions. These are the key stores of value. Whenever somebody says, oh, I'm adding value to this project or service or whatever, you think to yourself sometimes, well, how? What exactly are you doing? Just saying adding value is, as if it's some kind of executive summary in a pitch or something. You're always left with that vague, ambiguous feeling inside, and there's lack of clarity. So if you have a value proposition, then you've got the minimum viable message in order to create that clarity. Now, if we were to break down the value proposition, you'll find there's interchangeable building blocks which you can swap in and out to help provide that clarity. So what do I mean by that? Well, these interchangeable building blocks, and for the purposes of this conversation, there are five. The what, the service, the product, the project, the who, the final customer, how do they benefit, what is it they want, what pain point are they trying to resolve, how, what are the activities or the services or the approaches that are going to be implicated to achieve those specific milestones and outcomes, or the key performance indicators that demonstrate you've been successful. So as a simple example, here is a value proposition I prepared earlier. This loyalty scheme will help parents get child entertainment by providing free cinema tickets on Saturday afternoon. We know we have been successful when the revenue is greater than the cost for this membership program. So it's very clear which element is in those statements, right? So depending on how you change each of those elements, will give you a unique value proposition and provide sufficient information to get the clarity you want. Now, one of the key principles I'm very keen to espouse is that if your target audience doesn't recognise the value, then stop working on it, or at least change the value proposition until they do. So it's an iterative process. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, the first step is to take a template like this, something will help, something provides something, you get the idea. Now, there's a slight variance on this, and this comes to the kind of the elevator pitch that people often associate with value propositions. Trust us because of our credentials, our past successful projects, or our client list, or the trust pilot ratings that are out there. So if we take this template, we can add the missing elements, the interchangeable building blocks to construct your value proposition. So that was the first step. The next two steps is to test your hypothesis, i.e. your value proposition, and then repeat that definition stage until you have something which is of value. So the way you understand whether it's valuable or not is asking simple questions like, is this important? Why is it important? And once you have the answer to those things, then you'll know whether the hypothesis or the value proposition is still valid or not. So this process is actually very similar to a metaphor I like to use, which is the one-armed bandit. Now, one-armed bandit is quite simple. You pull the lever and then it will start to roll the tumblers, and on these tumblers there are various icons, and a combination of those icons, when they come to rest on the screen, will then determine whether you've won a prize or not. And you keep pulling the lever until you get and putting money in the machine until you get the result that you want. In the same way, you'll also have a value proposition, and each element can be interchanged with something else to come up with a completely new, different value proposition just on the basis of changing one specific thing. So in our previous example, where it was parents and children, it could be old age pensioners, for example, and instead of Saturday afternoon, it could be a Tuesday morning, and instead of free cinema tickets, it could be I don't know, a cake and a coffee or something like that. So as a consequence, you'll then have a completely different value proposition. So let's change gear into the second bit of our little video blog here, the elements of alignment. Now, we've discussed the value proposition and getting clarity. Now let's get to the nub of the issue here, working with stakeholders and trying to come to consensus and getting alignment on those things. Now, there's 4 elements here, and it's only when all 4 elements are in alignment can we say that we've got consensus, that we can make progress and move forward. So the bottom 2 elements here, outcomes and approach, they've obviously been taken from the value proposition here, but because we're talking about consensus with a variety of different stakeholders, we need to also consider the broader context within which the value proposition is being applied, and that's situation awareness, values and principles. And it's these 2 elements which also need to be discussed in addition to the value proposition in terms of getting alignment. Now, I'm just going to dwell on the first 2 elements for a little bit. Situation awareness. The major point here is the search for truth. Understanding the facts, where we are today, the additional context within which the customer is operating, the other elements or evidence of the competitive environment, the resources available within the company, that new information which somebody else didn't know before, which changes their perspective. So it's very much an evidence-based, facts-based conversation. Do we agree on those facts? And if we don't agree on those facts, then there's an opportunity for further work to find out what is going on. So, for example, if they say a product launch was late, then it's very easy to start blaming or accusing somebody because they didn't do their job properly or whatever without further analysis. Now, if we've all been brought up well in the agile methodology, we'll know that continuous improvement, retrospective, so on and so forth, we'll need to get to the root cause. So if there is disagreement here, then there's the opportunity to do more activity, root cause analysis, to actually not blame somebody, but get to the heart of the matter, the truth of the matter, to make progress. Now, whilst I've put opinions and feelings here as not applicable, they're not applicable in the sense of those are the things which are not going to help the value proposition move forward, but we need to acknowledge those opinions and feelings of our stakeholders. We need to empathise with them and recognise and respect what the counterparty, the other stakeholders, the customer are saying, listening to, so that they feel they've been heard. That's very important in terms of building the trust required to actually have a no blame kind of conversation with the facts and evidence. When we start focusing on values and principles, it's very much what are the drivers and motivators for the different people who are involved in the conversation. In addition, looking at what the customer feels is important. Why would they buy that product? In addition, looking at what the organisation values. What is the organisation here to do? Why are we here? What is our purpose? And if we have a clear understanding of that, and then trying to recognise maybe there's a difference in terms of the organisation's purpose, the individual contributors and why they're here, why they're motivated to have this conversation about this value proposition, and indeed the customer, recognising the different elements, recognising where there is a disagreement, will help clarify what needs to be done in order to reach consensus. And the point is with these four elements, where we spend most of our time today is actually focusing on the outcomes and the approach of the value proposition, assuming that the situation awareness and the values and principles are already being agreed, that we're already on the same page. And my suggestion is, my experience is, in fact, that we don't agree on these two elements, and in fact we spend most of our time down here misguidedly, when we should be spending much more time getting agreement here, putting ticks in the boxes here, and we'll find that the resolution, the outcomes and the approach of the value proposition will be much easier to solve first. So, to underline the point, spend time focusing on the top of the alignment template, the areas which are actually quite difficult, often assumed implicitly. The situation awareness, the values and the principles will often lead to getting agreement on the bottom two elements, which is your value proposition, outcomes and approach. So effectively, I'm not inventing something new here. These problems have been around us for years, and as Charles Kettering has said, a problem well stated is a problem half solved. So if what I've said today has been of interest to you and has provided you with some insight, there's a huge amount of additional techniques and approaches, conversation where we discuss the experiences of trying to work through these challenges in our working lives. And at the moment, what we've taken from our course here, relationships and value management, is value propositions, alignment with people and conflict resolution. We go into a lot more detail and discuss also other techniques which are very useful in terms of making progress and getting ahead in your career. So if you're looking for more information, click on the link bta.news/ZRL and bta.news/91s. Now, we're offering a special offer. So if you were to buy relationship management, you would also get value management and strategy management for free. It's a free for one bundle, and you'll be taking part in a beta program where you'll be providing us with feedback on the course content and the way that the course works. So if you need any more information, we'll be very happy to receive an inquiry from you. and I trust this has been useful for you and look forward to speaking to you the next time. Thank you.